guys, I hope all of you are good, and I am back with the 6th video of the video series on Class 10 Science Life Processes, and in this video we are going to learn about transportation and importance of circulatory system. Now, we know that our body is made up of cells and each and every cell is performing its function. Now, it is important that each and every cell gets the required amount of food and energy, and also it is important that the waste materials it's taken out from each and every cell. Now the question is, who is going to do this postman's job? As in, who is going to take the good things to the cell and take out the bad things from the cell? And that is where the process of transportation comes into picture. So we will see in transportation that there are a couple of components in this entire process, which carries out all these functions of taking things from one part of the body to another. And this is exactly what we are going to learn in the circulatory system. So we will not only learn the human circulatory system, but we will also learn the circulatory system of different animals. So transport of oxygen, water, food, hormones, etc. to different parts of the body is called internal transport. It is known as internal transport because the transportation takes place within our body. It is not visible from outside. So that is why it is called internal transport. So here we will first talk about the internal transport in humans. Why are we going to talk about humans first? Because just now we finished our discussion on the respiratory system in human beings. So if I start with the transport system in human beings, it will be easier for you to understand now because the respiratory system is still fresh in your mind, right? Now the internal transport system in humans is known as the circulatory system. Circulatory. The word circulatory has come from the word circulation. So here in this picture you can see that there are some tube-like structures which are carrying blood everywhere. There are some blue lines, there are some red lines. We will talk about them, what do they denote. But here you can see that blood is flowing to each and every part of the body. So we say that blood is actually carrying the things to each and every corner of the body. So each part or each cell needs all of the oxygen, the nutrients, enzymes and hormones. And also each wants to get rid of the undesired substances like the wastes. For example, inside each cell, so many metabolic activities are happening. So there are some waste products also. So they do not want to keep the waste products. So so each cell needs all the good things and they also want to get rid of all the bad things. So the good things as well as the bad things both are transported by means of some fluids. So the movement of these fluids throughout the body is termed as circulation, and that is why this system is known as the circulatory system. So we call it as circulatory system in human beings. So we are now going to study about the circulatory system. Let us now look at the different parts or the different organs which together constitute the circulatory system of our body. The circulatory system consists of the heart. It is needless to tell you what is heart. We all know it is a very important organ of our body. Now, what is the role of this heart in circulatory system? Heart basically acts as a pump which actually makes the blood flow. For example, you would have seen the hand pumps, right, which is used to fetch water from the ground. So what happens when you apply pressure on the handle, the water comes out from the bottom. The water comes up from the bottom. Here also in this picture you can see, look at this water filter. So when this person gives a pressure on top, the water is fetched from the downward. So water comes up through this pipe and it is fetched into this glass. So that means this pressure, so this is acting as a pump. So this pump will actually fetch the liquid from the ground. So similarly, the heart acts as a pump which actually regulates how the blood has to flow or how the fluid has to flow. So heart is the pump of the circulatory system. So heart has all the control of the circulatory system. So other than heart, we have arteries, veins and capillaries. What are these three? These three are nothing but the blood vessels. As I mentioned before also, blood vessels means they are vessels. The word vessel means container. So container containing blood. That means these are some kind of vessels which actually carry blood from one place to another. So they are the blood carriers. Other than that, we have blood and lymph. These are the fluid-like substances. So they actually form the circulating medium. So they form the circulatory medium, because whatever it is, the gases or the food materials or the nutrients or the waste products, they are carried through this medium of blood or lymph. Now this blood, how this blood flows, this blood are enclosed in the blood vessels. Now there are three types of blood vessels: arteries, veins and capillaries. And who controls the movement of blood throughout the body? The heart. So these things together constitute the human circulatory system. So now we will try to understand the functioning of the circulatory system and the purpose of each of these organs in detail. So first, let us try to understand what is the significance of circulatory system. Why at all do we need to study about circulatory system, or why at all do we have a separate life process called transportation? It helps in transport of gases. When I say transport of gases, you can think of the transport of oxygen from lungs to the different cells of the body, and the transport of carbon dioxide from different cells of the body to the lungs, right? It also helps in transport of nutrients. For example, glucose, which is used to produce ATP. What is glucose? Glucose is the food in its simpler form. So this glucose, which is used to produce ATP, is transported throughout the body, right? So this transportation is also done by the circulatory system. Transport of hormones. There are so many hormones inside our body, right? So those hormones also need to be transported to different body parts, because hormones have some specific function of their own. We have so many hormonal traits, like the male hormones, the female hormones, which give characteristics or which give rise to characteristics in a person. So these hormones also need to be transported to different body parts. Transport of wastes from cells. So when we talk about wastes, you see that during digestion, there are so many waste products which are formed. For example, urea. So this urea, what do we do with that urea? That urea needs to be transported to the kidneys for excretion, because in the human body system, there is another system called excretory system, which we will talk about after the circulatory system. So who will transport that waste product, for example, urea, to the kidney? So the circulatory system has to transport urea to the kidney, and then kidney will take care of the excretion process. Transport heat to maintain body temperature. As I said, in case of warm-blooded animals, they always want to keep their body temperature constant. So in order to keep their body temperature constant, they need some energy. So that also is transported with the help of the circulatory system. Contains cells that fight infection. Now the component of this circulatory system, that is blood. Blood contains a component called white blood cells, which help to fight infection. So white blood cells present in the blood are a kind of soldier to our body. That means it helps to fight infection, and it builds the immunity of the body against diseases. So these are some of the significance of the circulatory system. So with this, we will talk about the circulatory system in animals. Let us now talk about the circulatory system in animals. So when I talk of animals, it is not only the human beings which we are going to talk about. There are many other varieties of animals as well. So let us see what kind of circulatory system are present in different types of animals. Now basically there are two types of circulatory system. One is open circulatory system and the other one is closed circulatory system. So what is the difference between the two? What is open and closed circulatory system? So open circulatory system is the one where we have something called hemolymph. What is hemolymph? It is a fluid which is a mixture of blood, that is hemo, and the interstitial fluid, that is the fluid which flows in the body cavities. So there is just one fluid which is mixture of blood and the normal tissue fluid. So in this case, blood is pumped by heart in the blood cavities. So there is no concept of blood vessels in case of the open circulatory system. The blood just flows throughout the entire body, and the organs of that organism, they are like they bath in the blood. So they are all floating in the blood. It is like that. So all the body cavities are filled with the fluid called hemolymph. It is generally found in lower organisms like mollusks and arthropods. Arthropods, I'm sure you are aware of these terms, mollusks and arthropods. We have spoken about them in the lesson on diversity in living organisms in class 9th. So these are the classes where we see open circulatory system. There is another type of circulatory system which is closed circulatory system. So here blood is enclosed in blood vessels. Now as soon as you enclose the blood into vessels, things become organized, and moreover when you enclose blood inside some vessels, the pressure of the blood also increases. Therefore the blood flows because of the pressure. So here the blood and the interstitial fluid are separated from each other. So blood is enclosed in the blood vessels, and the interstitial fluid, which is also known as lymph, is present in the body cavities. So they are separate here. Blood and lymph are separate. So blood is pumped by heart through blood vessels and doesn't normally fill the body cavities. So it is not that blood just flows everywhere inside the body. They are in a well organized manner. That means the blood flows inside proper blood vessels. It is generally found in vertebrates and some invertebrates too. So most all vertebrates have closed circulatory system, including human beings, fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds. All of them have a closed circulatory system. So now in this lesson we will talk about the closed circulatory system in detail. So when we start with the closed circulatory system, even in closed circulatory system, it is different in different organisms. I mean the heart, which is the main pumping organ of the circulatory system, it looks different in different organisms. So let us start with the closed circulatory system of fishes. Let us see what kind of a circulatory system do fishes have. So fishes have two-chambered heart. What do we mean by two-chambered heart? So normally this pumping organ, that is heart, it is divided into chambers, or it is divided into room-like structures. So fishes have two chambers inside the heart. So what are these two chambers? The two chambers are called auricles and ventricles. So the fish's heart has one auricle and one ventricle. So what is auricle and what is ventricle, and why at all the heart is divided into chambers? The heart is divided into chambers in order to keep things more organized. So these auricles are the receiving chambers. That means the chamber which will receive blood. Ventricle is the chamber which will pump the blood. That means ventricle will release out the blood and auricle will receive the blood. Now I'll give you a small memory tip here to remember that which is the receiving chamber and which is the pumping chamber. So AIR, that is air, right? So AIR means auricle is receiving chamber. Similarly, VIP, that is ventricle is pumping chamber. So with like this you can remember that auricles are the receiving chambers and ventricles are the pumping chambers. So blood enters into the auricles and blood goes out from the ventricle. So in order to keep the incoming blood and the outgoing blood separate, the heart has been separated into two different types of chamber. So now, how the blood flow or how this transportation take place in case of fishes. Now before that, which is the organ which is present in fishes which is used for gaseous exchange? That means which is the respiratory organ in fishes? They do not have lungs, right? They have organs called gills. We have already spoken about gills in one of the previous slides. So what will happen here? So let us suppose, so I'll make a block diagram here. So these are the gills of the fishes. So what is the function of the gills? To absorb oxygen from water, because they are aquatic animals. So they will absorb oxygen from which is dissolved in water. So the gills will absorb this oxygen. Now what will the gills do? Now the blood, this oxygen will get dissolved in the blood. How? Inside the gills also, like how inside the lungs we saw that the oxygen which enters the lungs, it reaches the alveoli, then it is transferred to the capillaries. So that is how, that is in similar way, this oxygen which is absorbed by the gills, this oxygen is also passed to the blood. So now the blood is rich in oxygen. So this blood is known as oxygenated blood. What is oxygenated blood? Blood which is rich in oxygen. And what is deoxygenated blood? Deoxygenated blood is poor in oxygen. Poor in oxygen, or we can say it is rich in carbon dioxide. So till now we were talking about air, right? We were telling that good air contains lot of oxygen and bad air contains lot of carbon dioxide. Similarly, now we are going to talk about blood, because during transportation, whether it is oxygen or carbon dioxide, they get dissolved in blood. So the blood which is rich in oxygen, we say that is oxygenated blood. And the blood which is rich in carbon dioxide or which is poor in oxygen is called deoxygenated blood. So now once the gills absorb the oxygen, what kind of blood will come out of the gills? It will be oxygenated blood, but because it will have more of oxygen. So this is the good blood. So where will the good blood go? This good blood will go to the different parts of the body. So this is oxygenated blood. So this oxygenated blood from the gills will go to the different parts of the body. Correct? Now from in the different parts of the body, the process of respiration will take place. The cellular respiration will take place in each cell, and as a result carbon dioxide will be produced. Now each cell will want to get rid of that extra carbon dioxide, so that carbon dioxide will be sent back to the blood. So now the blood which will come from the body, the blood which is coming back from different parts of the body, that is rich in carbon dioxide. So that is deoxygenated blood. So let me denote the dotted line for deoxygenated blood. So deoxygenated blood will come out from the different parts of the body. So where will this blood go? Now this blood will go to the heart. Let us suppose this is the heart of the fish. So this deoxygenated blood will go to the heart. Where it will go? Now the heart is divided into two chambers, that is auricle and ventricle. Auricle is the receiving chamber, so it will receive the deoxygenated blood. Then the auricle will pass this deoxygenated blood into the ventricles, and then the ventricles will pass them to the gills again. So what will the gills do? The gills will again send the carbon dioxide to outside. So gills will send the carbon dioxide outside, and it will take in the oxygen, and again it will send oxygenated blood. So you can, in one way you can think of it like this, that gills are the organs which are actually converting deoxygenated blood into oxygenated blood. If you see here, deoxygenated blood is entering into the gills and oxygenated blood is coming out of the gills, right? I'm sorry, this should have been a dotted line. This is a dotted line. By mistake, I drew it a straight line. This is actually deoxygenated blood, right? So this is how the blood circulation takes place in case of fishes. Now the question is, now I already explained you why the heart is divided into chambers, to keep things segregated so that the blood coming in is kept separated from the blood going out. Also here we see that there is not much separation between the oxygenated and the deoxygenated blood. So if you see here, I mean, there is not much separation. So here the deoxygenated blood is going in, going out. Then the same blood is again becoming oxygenated. So it is like that. Now fishes are cold-blooded animals. Therefore, they do not need any extra energy for their maintenance of their temperature. So here blood leaves the gills and immediately circulate to the body. Therefore, we do not need to add more chambers than two. That is why heart has only two chambers here. So these are the organisms which have least number of chambers in the heart. As we go ahead with reptiles, amphibians, they have 3-chambered heart. When we go ahead with human beings, they have 4-chambered heart. The fishes have only 2-chambered heart, because in this case we see that as soon as the blood comes out from the gills, it is immediately circulated to the body. So it doesn't go anywhere else for any other process. So that is why we do not really need much additional chambers. So that is why fishes have only 2-chambered heart. So it is clear how the circulation takes place in case of fishes. Let us now see another important thing, that here only one time, it was just once that in one cycle of circulation the blood passed through the heart. So this is one cycle of circulation, and in one cycle the blood passed through the heart only once. That is why this is known as single circulation. Let us now talk about amphibians and reptiles. As I just mentioned, they have 3-chambered heart. So what are the 3 chambers? Now they have 2 auricles and 1 ventricle. Earlier we had 1 auricle and 1 ventricle, but now we have 2 receiving chambers. Auricles are the receiving chambers, right? That is left auricle and right auricle, which are abbreviated as LA and right and RA. So let us look at how circulation takes place in case of amphibians and reptiles. Let us suppose here we denote the different body parts. Which is the respiratory organ in case of amphibians and reptiles? They have lungs. So let us suppose this is the lungs, this is the body, and let us suppose this is the heart. Now here the heart is divided into 3 chambers. So there are 2 auricles. So let us suppose this is right auricle, this is left auricle, and this is the ventricle. So this is how the heart looks like in case of amphibians and reptiles. This is the lungs. So what is the purpose of lungs? Lungs will take in oxygen from outside. So the blood which will be coming out from the lungs, that will be the oxygenated blood. So where does this oxygenated blood go? The oxygenated blood goes to the left auricle. So this is the oxygenated blood. Now left auricle is the receiving chamber, so it received the oxygenated blood. Now this oxygenated blood then needs to be passed to which chamber? So that if you want to send it outside, the auricle should send it to the ventricle. So it will send it to the ventricle. What will the ventricle do? The ventricle will send the oxygenated blood to the different parts of the body. So the oxygenated blood comes from lungs to the heart, and from heart it goes to the body. But in case of fishes, we saw that the oxygenated blood directly came from gills and it directly went to different body parts. But here it will come via heart. Now in the body, it will reach each and every cell. So once oxygen reaches each and every cell, cellular respiration will take place. So carbon dioxide will be released in each cell. This carbon dioxide will get mixed with the blood. So the blood coming out from different parts of the body will be the deoxygenated blood. So this deoxygenated blood will then reach the right auricle of the heart, because auricle is again the receiving chamber. So it will receive the deoxygenated blood. It will send the deoxygenated blood to the ventricle, and the ventricle will send this deoxygenated blood back to the lungs. So what will the lungs do with this deoxygenated blood? The lungs will take out carbon dioxide from the blood and throw it outside. The carbon dioxide will be thrown outside, and when oxygen is taken in, again the oxygenated blood is sent to the left auricle. So what do you see here? This complete thing which you see on the screen, this is one cycle of circulation. That is oxygenated blood from lungs to different parts of the body, deoxygenated blood from body to different part to lungs. So in this entire cycle, the blood crossed heart 2 times, right? Once when this oxygenated blood crossed the left auricle and ventricle, again when the deoxygenated blood crossed the right auricle and the ventricle. So that is why this is known as double circulation, because the blood passes through the heart twice during one cycle of circulation. Clear? Now again, one memory tip here is, sometimes people get confused that which blood is oxygenated and which blood is deoxygenated. Always remember, oxygenated, the name itself says the blood which is rich in oxygen. Deoxygenated, the blood which is poor in oxygen, that is the bad blood which is rich in carbon dioxide. Now this oxygenated blood will always come from lungs to the left auricle. L for lungs, L for left auricle. So L for lungs, L for left auricle. So from lungs, the blood will come to the left auricles, because auricles will always be the receiving chamber. So every time blood should come inside the auricles and blood should go out from the ventricles. Clear? Now, which blood will come to the left auricle? L for left auricle, L for lungs. So the blood from the lungs should come to the left auricle. What kind of blood will come from the lungs? Because lungs take in oxygen from outside. So the blood which will come from the lungs has to be oxygenated blood. Clear? So it is very to remember it this way. So oxygenated blood from lungs comes to left auricle, auricle will send it to ventricle, ventricle will send it outside to different body parts. In body parts, cellular respiration will happen, carbon dioxide will be produced as a byproduct. So this carbon dioxide will get mixed with the blood and the blood will become deoxygenated. So the deoxygenated blood will go to the right auricle, it will send it to the ventricle, and the ventricle will send it back to the lungs. Now another question is, what makes the blood flow from auricles to ventricles? Why does the blood flow? I mean, once the blood reaches the auricle, how does the blood know that it has to flow from auricle to ventricle? The blood has a very high pressure. Since the blood is enclosed inside blood vessels, therefore the blood has a good high pressure. And because of this pressure, the blood is made to flow from auricles to ventricles. So now in this case, you have seen that now what is the advantage you feel when you have three chambers? I mean, why did they separate the auricles into two separate chambers, a left auricle and right auricle? Because once we have segregated the auricles into two separate chambers, we have actually segregated the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. So here you can see that left auricle will always deal with the oxygenated blood and right auricle will always deal with the deoxygenated blood. There will be no mixing at all. Whereas since there is one ventricle, therefore this same ventricle deals with the deoxygenated blood and the same ventricle also deals with the oxygenated blood. So by introducing a third chamber, the mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood is controlled to some extent, because we do not want the good blood and the bad blood to get mixed up together, right? So by introducing a third chamber, the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood are separated to some extent in the auricles. Now there is one exception who has a four-chambered heart, and that is crocodile. Crocodile is a reptile which does not have a three-chambered heart. Instead, they have a four-chambered heart like human beings. So we will talk about the four-chambered heart in the next slide. I hope this video was useful. However, this is not the end to the circulatory system. In fact, this is just the beginning. So in the next video, we are going to learn about the circulatory system in humans. So stay tuned.